Phulkari, which literally translates to flower work, is a unique style or technique of embroidery originating from the Punjab. It is a form of craft in which embroidery is done in a simple and sparse design over shawls and dupattas or chunnis. Phulkari work is done with untwisted floss silk yarn called butt and typically produced with the use of darn-style stitching on the wrong side of the material. The embroidery was originally made on hand-woven coarse cloth called khadar. Originating in the 15th century, it's a rural handmade embroidery tradition started by the women of Punjab and is also known as the folk embroidery of Punjab. It's a dying art which was almost lost following the partition of Punjab in 1947. Phulkari motifs and designs were passed down and continue to be passed down from generation to generation by word of mouth. Thus, each family had its own characteristic style, and with practice and experience, each woman was able to develop her own repertoire and creative practice. And so Phulkari became an expression of the embroiderer's feelings, hopes and dreams. For instance, through a pair of peacocks, the women of the Punjab described their personal life and relationship with their spouses. A drooping plumage signified a sad relationship or distance. A blooming one revealed the bliss of married life. Phulkari motifs often made it to poetry and conveyed bits of wisdom to their generations, to those that it was handed down to. The birth of a girl marks the beginning of the child's grandmother creating the Phulkari piece to give to her granddaughter. It was a way of communicating and passing down her history, her experiences through the generations. Phulkari itself is more than just a handicraft. The threads of Phulkari are inextricably linked and tied to the history of Punjab. This Phulkari piece was handmade by my dadi, or my paternal grandmother, Atma Kaur. She was born in the village of Isarwar in the Punjab, and I think this piece must have been made during the early 1900s before she was married, and then later migrated to Arusha in Tanzania, and finally then came to Southall in the UK. We've sort of worked out the history of this piece a little bit through the fact that on the back of the piece is inscribed Thakur Singh, which was my great-grandfather, or my Nana, which was my grandmother's father's name. It gives me lots of ideas and thoughts of what she must have been thinking and talking about as she made and embroidered the piece along with the other women of the village. As they sat together and shared stories. And I wish I knew more about the piece itself, but it still means a lot to me, and I feel her presence whenever I look at the Phulkari.